Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans, a Stabby chaos coordinator, one chief shenanigator, geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our guest, Mr. J.C. Chambers III, introduce himself to our listeners, viewers at home.
Hi, everybody. I'm JC. I'm an author. I'm here today to discuss Deadmen Dungeoneers, which is an ongoing progression fantasy serial with lit RPG and game lit elements. I also write the Cocoon Chronicles, which is a really over-the-top, nuts, high-flying action progression fantasy that's over on Amazon. I think that fictional worlds should be really intricate. I believe that action should be bombastic, and I believe that romance should give you diabetes because it's so sweet.
I mean, are we talking sweet enough that Wilford Brimley comes back?
You know, I don't get that reference, and I feel bad.
He's the guy that would do the diabetes commercial. The old guy with the gray beard and the glasses.
I am missing this cultural reference. So this is already
making me feel old. Jiminy Crickets. All right. You really don't know who Wilford Brimley is?
So I grew up on AFN from the time I was 11. So like if it was any time before that, I was watching Cartoon Network, and any time after that, I was watching You Can Learn a Lot from a Gunny. So and I didn't watch TV after I graduated high school because the internet was a thing.
Okay, that's fair. All right, you know what? We're going to educate you today, and I'm going to upload this image for you. So he is a famous actor from back in the day. You'll recognize him, and you're going to be like, "How did I not know this guy?" He has been everywhere, but he is a famous actor who then at the end of his career was doing commercials for diabetes stuff because it was something he was passionate about. And should be it. Nope, that's not it. Remove. There we go. Went to the wrong file. I was giving you the commercial thing. But yeah, he did a lot of the diabetes commercials, and so he's just been a running joke. There you go. That guy. That's Wilford Brimley. He did all the diabetes testing kit commercials.
I feel like I should recognize him, but I don't.
That's still wow.
Now ask me an anime, and there's a really reasonable chance I'll be able to name it.
I got nothing. Wow. I got okay. I guess I'm just old. He's an actor who did a lot of westerns.
Okay, so unfortunately, I didn't watch. I have not watched many westerns.
He's from Salt Lake. He's from Utah. I thought you said you were from Utah, right?
No. I moved out here as an adult.
Okay.
I moved all over the place, and well, actually, I mean, getting into the subject of the story, I lived for 5.5 years in Japan, which is a large inspiration for how I wrote Deadmen Dungeoneers the way that I did. So
Wilford Brimley was a Marine in the 50s. Then he was an extra and the stuntman in the 60s for Western films. And then in the 70s and the 80s, he was a character actor. He was most famous for the actor in The Thing, and then in 82. And then he was the advertising guy for Quaker Oats for many, many years. And Liberty Medical, where he advertised for the diabetes, becoming an internet meme.
Unfortunately, you have exposed the fact that I haven't actually seen The Thing. Because I am an uncultured swine, apparently.
He is a Korean War veteran. Although what he did in the Korean War, I do not know. I just know when I pulled up his Wikipedia, I knew it was a Marine. I didn't know what he did in the Marine Corps.
Mm.
Okay. Anyway, enough about that. Before we get too far off the beaten path, we're gonna do the religion questions. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
All right. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
Star Wars. Before Disney.
Okay. What is it about Star Wars that you like?
I like space wizards. I like the sense of wonder. I like the sense of adventure. The idea that there is I like the themes of good and evil, and how the storytelling, especially from the original trilogy, is universal. But I also really like that there's always a feeling that there's more stories to be told in this universe. There's always more to see, more to explore. So that was something I really liked about Star Wars.
Okay.
Star Trek was fun, but it also felt to me, it felt a little bit too clinical. And Firefly was also interesting, but it didn't click for me the way that Star Wars did. And I think that just has more to do with it didn't have the emphasis on space wizards.
My problem with Star Trek, it always felt too utopian, and it just didn't seem to understand human nature at its core. It seemed to simultaneously believe the best and the worst of humans with very little middle ground. I am told that the novelization addressed a lot of that in later series. I've watched Enterprise, which didn't seem to do that, with Captain Archer and the dog and the guy from Quantum Leap. I watched that one. I watched parts of Deep Space Nine, which I really liked. So some of them didn't really feel like Star Trek, but if we're going on like the Next Generation, that one just felt too clinical, and Q just annoyed me.
Mm-hmm. Now, my dad is a huge Trekkie. Growing up, he had phasers on his wall, and always made Star Trek references. I didn't realize they were Trek references until I was older. But yeah, he loved Star Trek. Loves Star Trek.
So if he loves Star Trek, you're the third. That means he's the second. Did you ever call him number 2?
No, I did not.
You should, before it's too late. Take it. Take the opportunity and seize it.
Okay.
Or do it over the phone, just so that way you're not within like striking distance. He was a Marine, so you gotta hedge your bets. So what did your dad do in the Marine Corps?
PMO, military police, 30 years military police.
So he broke up a lot of bar fights.
Yes, he did.
Okay. So what, he would have been Japan. Did he do any time in China? I know at one point in time we had a Marine base there, but I don't know when.
No time in China. He did a tour in Iraq. In
First Gulf?
No, 2007, I think.
So he must have been on his way out.
He retired in around 2016 or 17, I think, if I remember right. And he joined the Marines in the 80s. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. So we try to be polytheistic here at the Blasphemous Blades podcast. So we're going to ask you, sir, Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia?
Okay, so Game of Thrones is no. Like, just no.
Too grimdark for you?
Yeah, I like stuff that's more hopeful. And I don't think George R. R. Martin's nihilistic approach to humanity is I believe it's neither an accurate representation of humanity nor is it the type of story I enjoy. I just don't. I like characters. I like stories around heroic characters doing heroic things. That's why I write them. Wheel of Time and Chronicles of Narnia are two absolutely fantastic series for two completely different reasons. Putting them in the same genre is almost like they're so different in so many ways. The way a friend of mine put it is like, Wheel of Time is like a fine cheese. Like, it's fantastic, but it's also super dense, and you can only do so much of it at a time, unless you're really into that like heavy blue cheese, in which case everybody is looking at you, giving you the side eye, like, what's wrong with you? Why are you just eating straight blue cheese? So I'm going to have to say Narnia, just because I think in a way it's even more timeless than the Wheel of Time. It's so simple, even a child can understand it, because it was written for children, but it's also beautiful with wonderful themes, and it's one of the few allegories that I actually enjoy.
Now, when I first read it, I didn't actually realize it was an allegory. It was just a fun story.
Yep.
Okay. So we asked you last time what your favorite dinosaur is, so we're going to mix it up a little bit. And one of the crying shames of adulthood is we stop asking each other these important questions, and we're going to keep that theme going, and we're going to ask you this time, what's your favorite zoo animal?
So the Japanese macaque, the kind that you will find where they like to just chill in hot springs.
You said it's called the Japanese macaque?
MACAQUE. It's either a Q or another C, but it's like if you've ever seen like the monkeys like chilling in hot springs, it's those.
All right, cool. Have you actually seen one?
Yeah, actually. Back in the day, we hiked up a mountain in Japan, and when we got to the top, it was springtime, but there was still ice and snow up on the mountaintop, and there were just monkeys chilling there.
So what was your favorite part of living in Japan when your dad was stationed there?
Japan? No. I enjoyed the peace, the sense of discovery and peace. It was the kind of place where, as a teenager, you could just wander around, and it was perfectly safe. So I got to go see all sorts of cool things. I got to visit cool places. I got to discover these little tiny, nooks and crannies and niches and things. There were I could go jumping off waterfalls in the morning, or I guess go to the beach in the morning and go jumping off waterfalls in the afternoon. My friends and I would go to the beach and would throw jellyfish at each other. There were fields and fields of lotus around around the base, and something you learned is that lotus is hydrophobic. So you could pour water on it, and it would like turn into little bees, and you could roll it around on the leaf of the lotus. I love the food, okonomiyaki, sushi. I'm blanking on literally every other Japanese food I've ever eaten because I'm terrible. And I really enjoyed it. I loved the weather. I loved the rain. I loved the trees. I loved the mountains. I loved the rivers. It was beautiful. It was to me, it was heaven on earth. I've lived a lot of places, and there's nowhere quite like it.
Okay. So we actually had this scheduled, and then we had to reschedule. So this will air a lot closer to recording than normal. So that we were just talking in the pre-show about Japan because their weird hobby culture. And when I served in Iraq in 2003 and 2005, wasn't that long ago. And already the young men and young women of Japan are reenacting the early global war on terror as a hobby, much like I, when I was in college, reenacted the Civil War, which is just, I don't quite know how to make that wrap around my head. So, did you see any of those weird hobbies? Obviously, they weren't reenacting a war that hadn't happened yet for you, but did you see any of those weird hobbies while you were there?
See hobbies. I don't know if I'd say I saw weird hobbies too much. But I saw a lot of baseball where I would just see kids practicing real baseball at the park. after school, and they'd be doing that like almost religiously. Their baseball team made our baseball team like I saw one of their high school baseball teams practicing once and made our high school baseball team look like a bunch of slobs. To be fair, our high school baseball team, I don't think they ever actually won. So there's that.
I saw a meme once about be the kind of people Japan thinks you are when they when they draw their anime.
But there's definitely, if you're going, I think there's a sense that if you're going to get into something, you get really into it. So like they sell airsoft guns, and I did see those like BB guns, and the sheer level of quality and like attention to detail in replicating what would otherwise be American firearms is astounding. And you can't. I think it's changed a bit in these days because airsoft has become more of a hobby in the U.S. than it was when I was a kid. But like, basically, there was no way to tell that these firearms weren't real firearms except when you fired them or when you loaded them, because they didn't have like the orange tip that you see in a lot of model or fake guns that you see in the U.S. So if you didn't know what you were looking at, like, it looked like a real firearm.
Yeah. The airsoft thing with the guns that look real is just, I don't know. It's not quite sure. It's weird to look at them. They don't feel the same because the weight isn't the same.
Mm-hmm, yeah. But looking at them, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And it's something I have conflicted feelings about because, I do real shooting. I'm not very good at it, but I do shoot for real guns. And so I'm like, no, I don't want my fake guns to look like my real guns because I don't want people to think I'm using a real gun at this course. It's an interesting dynamic.
There used to be, you would see people that do the airsoft, you had to put the like the orange cap or whatever on the barrel.
Yeah. I don't know if that's still a requirement or not. It might be in the US. I know that I've seen them do airsoft in like Europe and they don't have the orange caps, but that's Europe. It's not the US.
They also don't have access to guns, so it's not a problem of confusion.
Yeah.
The government took their guns away, so it's not as big of a deal, I think.
Yeah.
So it's a different culture.
Yeah.
I imagine if they were doing like some sort of fake sword fighting, they'd have to put some sort of tag on it to show that it's a toy. But I don't know that to be true either. I'd have to ask any of my friends that do HEMA over there. So, All right. So let's get back on track. We do have one last, most important religion question left for you, sir. Are you ready for this?
Hit me.
All right. We are civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. We are no longer knuckle-dragging troglodytes. So, coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
Ooh, I want to say Rockstar Lemonade.
Why Rockstar Lemonade?
Because it's cheap and because it's lemonade.
Is that one of the ones that has the energy drink additives, or is it just literally lemonade?
It's caffeine. It's an energy drink, but it tastes like lemonade, and it's dirt cheap. It's the cheapest energy drink you can get right now.
What about so? Are you a fan of lemon lime grape juice or grape juice Gatorade then?
Not really. I if I'm going to do Gatorade, I prefer blue Gatorade. I don't know what
I like the orange one too.
Yeah.
Although there is a difference when you get it in the bottle versus when you make it yourself with the powder.
Oh yeah. I usually just do the bottle. I don't do the powder.
I can never get the powder mixed just right.
Yeah, and the thing is I drink caffeine when I'm doing mental work, but I drink Gatorade when I'm doing physical work. So like I wouldn't want to be drinking caffeine when I'm or lemonade when I'm working out or when I'm doing manual labor. So yeah.
Okay. Yes, so it's late September as we record this, so I'm still drinking hot coffee. But I probably will for the rest of the year. It's past the season for the iced coffee. I know technically I can get my pumpkin spice latte like a basic white girl, but it's a little too early for me. And I'm gonna wait and see if the competitors to Starbucks offer it, because I really would prefer to support local where I can. And lately, Starbucks has just gone downhill on the quality. The beans taste it tastes more like fast food, and if I'm paying what their prices are, I expect a gourmet experience. And I just, so I might have to investigate like getting my own espresso maker and the syrups to do it myself. It is something I've long thought about doing, but the initial upfront cost is the issue.
I can see that.
This might be the year of the espresso for JR. I'll have to look into that. Now I'm psyching myself up to price check this. I bet I could get a knockoff version on Wish that might give me cancer, but might not. Or is it Temu? Is it Wish or Temu that you get the knockoff stuff? I don't know. I'm not up on my social medias, clearly.
I think it's both, isn't it?
I don't know. Definitely not eBay.
Does anybody use eBay anymore?
I think people use eBay, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm clearly not a cultured man. So you grew up with a dad that was a Trekkie. So is that how you got into sci-fi and fantasy in general? Just, your dad being a fan, or did that come some other venue?
I think it was a combination of things. I definitely grew up. The first movie I remember seeing in theaters was The Phantom Menace. And then, my dad had Siphon Filter on the PS1 that he probably shouldn't have let me play, but he did. He also had Tekken 2 and a few other games. Plus, you had Spyro and Spider-Man and Crash Bandicoot. Those were more my games, but he would let me play Siphon Filter and Tekken. So there was like a kind of almost sci-fi-ish element there. Soul Calibur, I played a lot of that, and that was very fantasy. So a lot of video games. I grew up reading a lot. My mom taught us to read, and then like many people my age, I got hooked on Harry Potter when I was little, and so there was that combination. So I kept reading, kept playing video games, moved to Japan, made friends with other nerds, and eventually, I think I was 12 years old and talking with a buddy, and we were like, we can't find any books that are written the way that we want. And so I started writing them. And that's kind of what I've been doing ever since, is writing my own kind of brand of science fiction fantasy. And a few years ago, I became acquainted with the term progression fantasy. I'm like, that's what I'm writing. I'm writing progression fantasy.
Okay, so you were writing it before it had an official genre name.
Yeah. And I was reading Lit RPG before it was called Lit RPG as well. Connor Caustic's Epic was Lit RPG before Lit RPG was coined. But yeah, yeah.
Okay. What is it about the progression fantasy that you like so much?
So a lot of people, when they'll talk about progression fantasy, the thing that they emphasize is numbers get bigger. So the core distinction between progression fantasy and Lit RPG is Lit RPG has stat tables. Progression fantasy doesn't necessarily have stat tables. It can, but it doesn't need to. But for me, it's kind of more like happenstance that they cross over. I didn't know how to express this when I was younger, but I really liked a lot of the anime influences that or the anime concepts. I liked the idea of the training cycle. I liked the general heroics, the way that characters were just good. I liked the crazy superpowers and the crazy fight scenes, and all of those different things. And so a lot of my stories incorporated that type of stuff into it, and my characters got stronger over time. And there was an emphasis on training and on the power of friendship and on power-ups. And ultimately what that ends up becoming is progression fantasy. A lot of people say progression fantasy is about just getting stronger, but I don't think that's a good definition. The way that I usually explain progression fantasy to people is I say, take Final Fantasy, take Dragon Ball Z, and take D&D. So you have a spectrum along those three types of properties. You put a book somewhere along that spectrum, it is progression fantasy.
Okay. So were you a gamer growing up too then?
Oh, yeah. Video gamer. I didn't play tabletop until I was an adult.
Okay. What kind of video games were you playing?
So, I mean, as a kid, I played a lot of what my dad played, which were fighting games and sports games and racing games. Those were the big three. And then, obviously, you had Crash, Bandicoot, and Spyro. As I grew older and I started developing my own tastes, I realized I really like RPGs, and I really like games that have a good story. So I played a lot of Uncharted as a teenager. I played a lot of Final Fantasy as a teenager. I played, these days I play almost everything. The only games I really don't play these days are sports games. And
do
even
you
then,
watch sports or play sports in person, or are you just not a fan of sports at all?
I can appreciate it and I can enjoy it. A few years back, I went to the local Buffalo Wild Wings to watch a UFC fight between Israel Adesanya and someone else who I can't remember. So that was a fun thing for me. But I generally don't follow sports. I'll watch it if someone has it on, and I enjoy football. I really like baseball. I went to a baseball game in Japan, and I really enjoyed that. In fact, I still have my hat. This is my Carps hat. From when I was a teenager. So, yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, I want to get to talking about the book that brought us here. So we're going to pause for a moment while we shamelessly show for the man, and then we're going to get back and we're going to actually talk about the book, so we don't have to beat around the bush.
Grab your swords and get ready to level up. When gaming journalist Ray experiences a tragic accident with the next generation of gaming consoles, he finds himself stuck in the mystical land of Valka. Trapped in a world filled with magic beasts, warring factions, filthy bandits, and a level system that's out of this world. The only problem is, his only way out may be through. Ray must fight like his life depends on it, because it just may. Survival means victory, and defeat could mean the end. Forever. Legends Online Genesis releases on Audible January 7th. Digital and hard copies now available on Amazon.
All right. Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. I really ought to update that commercial from them, because that was when it launched, and I think they finished the series already. So it's on Audible, all of it, pretty much. Good problem to have, though, right? But anyway, so thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. So first off, your book is called Deadmen Dungeoneers. So can you tell us where the name? Oh, hold on, let me show that. Where the name comes from?
Yeah. So the Deadmen, the original concept for this serial was, what if you had a group of people whose job was basically to be like a hybrid of SWAT and EMS and their job is to go into dungeons or labyrinths that you see in lit RPGs and rescue people. And so, the name comes from, trying to come up with a good acronym. You have LAPD, you have NYPD, EMS. And I was like, Dungeon Extraction Advanced Division, DEAD. And so they go by Deadmen. And so that's where the original premise of this came in. And so what you see on the cover, though, is a bunch of Japanese anime style protagonists. And that has to do with why I made this a serial, not just a story, is because this is a pretty big concept. And so the main character, he gets attacked by a monster outside of a dungeon and awakens to a new power, or more accurately, an ancient power from 5,000 years ago, and becomes the champion of a deity, of an ancient dragon goddess, and gets a giant target on his back. And so the Deadmen take him under their wing and start training him and teaching him to use his powers, while there is this war brewing in the background and getting ready to catapult everything, because the demons and denizens of the dungeon are getting ready to do some horrific stuff.
Okay, I love a good acronym. I don't think anybody that's ever worked for the government doesn't like a good acronym. What would you say the rating, if you're going to use like the movie scale rating, because that's something everyone can kind of understand, what would you say the rating for this would be?
It's definitely rated R. There's some strong language and some pretty strong violence, and some gore. There's not much in terms of, there's no sexual content. There's some innuendo and some suggestive stuff, but nothing explicit in that regard.
Okay. We did talk about this, and I think some people get up in arms about AI art and stuff, so I figure we'll just throw this one on the table. Right now, this is published currently on Royal Road, which means it is free. It's a free website like Wattpad. Royal Road is one. There are a few others that don't come to mind at the moment, but that where you can read it chapter by chapter as the author writes it. Some people sell it, some people don't, but it's free. It's definitely, in many cases, pre-edit, meaning you're getting the beta reader, alpha reader experience. So obviously, if you're giving something away, most authors can't afford to pay for a cover for a book they're in the process of writing. So that's not to say this will be the permanent cover when it goes live. This is just the free cover he could generate while he's writing the book and letting you behind the scenes before he puts it for sale as a completed novel. Yep. So if that bothers you, if you want to wait at some point in time, I'm absolutely positive he'll have it edited with a proper cover on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all the cool places. But right now it's on Royal Road, and he's still writing the first novel. Is this going to be a series or a standalone?
So this is going to be a series. The first novel is actually already on Royal Road, but I'm going to wait to move stuff over to Amazon until I've got more content up, because I'm going to do about 70,000 word novels. And so the first book is up technically, and then as you said, I did use image generation to create the cover. It used to be back in the day on Royal Road, you would just use stock images. But AI has rendered that technique obsolete. You'd actually be surprised how much work I had to put into this cover regardless. AI is not necessarily very good at consistency, or getting things quite right or correcting things. So there's a lot of elements in here that weren't there originally. But when the story eventually does go over to Amazon, I would actually commission a real human-made cover. I enjoy hiring real people. I enjoy paying real people. I just, as you said, I'm giving this away for free. So for right now, just going to keep, with an AI cover. And additionally, yeah, it's definitely, first or second draft type stuff, but I like to think I write reasonably clean first and second drafts. And I think that it shouldn't be too distracting, even if you read on Royal Road.
So what made you go Royal Road instead of writing it and then publishing it when it was done?
Because I felt that this type of story fits the Royal Road audience pretty well. It's very heavily progression fantasy, and more than that, it's very, very, I guess you could say it's ambitious in a way. So the main reason actually has to do with pacing. So when I'm writing a normal novel, there are certain requirements that I have to hit when I am finishing the book by 60,000 words or 100,000 words. And it changes what I'm able to include in that first book. What do I need to have happen by the end of the first act? What do I need to have happen by the end of the second act, and so on and so forth? And with a serial, you have a lot more breathing room. And so I'm 70,000 words published. I've written a good chunk more than that already, and I'm uploading it over time. But it gives me a lot of flexibility to explore different POVs, to really get in depth with the magic, to really show the character grow over time, and not have to worry as much about making sure I hit certain pacing requirements.
Okay. How long do you see the series? Do you have any idea? Do you have it like plotted out, or
Yeah,
you're going to see where it takes you?
So I approached this with a. I think this has been done before in other places. I just haven't really read it much, but I approached it with a functionally an episodic structure. So there are 5 chapters per episode, and it's looking like there's 4 or 5 episodes per novel. And originally, basically, I broke the series up into arcs that I'm ripping off of Dragon Ball Z. I'm calling them sagas. And originally, I think I don't have my notes pulled up, 6 sagas. And it was originally going to be 7 episodes in the first saga. We are now on episode 6 and just now reaching what I originally outlined to be episode 3. So it's ballooning, but I do have a plan in place. And the key is that there are 2, 4, 6. Every second saga works as a good natural stopping point. So I'm going to finish the first saga eventually, and then probably move straight into writing the second saga. And when I finish the second saga, then I can decide, okay, is this doing as well as I want it to be? Do I want to continue it? Or do I want to stop here because I'm going to write it in such a way that I could end it there on the end of the second saga? And if I decide to continue, then the third saga leads into the fourth saga. And then when the fourth saga ends, I might be like, okay, I can stop here. And some of you may be saying, JC, this is really ambitious. Like, are you sure you're going to be able to write that much? I'm reasonably prolific.
Okay. At what pace are you writing these novels? So people know what to expect.
So at the moment, I've been going through a real life move. So I've been uploading a chapter a week. Once life settles down, I was doing about 2 chapters a week, and I'll probably move back to 2 chapters a week. If depending on how things go, I'm going to try to get up to 3 chapters a week. Ideally, I would like to do 5 chapters a week, but ultimately, I decided that I would rather have a higher quality product than a rapidly released product, which isn't always the route that lit RPG and progression fantasy authors take. There is something of an emphasis on quantity, just getting stuff out, but I couldn't necessarily bring myself to write that way, and there's nothing wrong with going that way. It's just I couldn't do it. So at least 1 chapter a week, and hopefully up to 2 or 3 chapters a week.
So is this first person or third person?
It is third person. I changed POVs. I changed POVs throughout the story, so it would be a lot harder to do that in first person.
Okay, how many POVs do you have?
So most of the first book is a single POV. At the end of at the middle of episode 4, I think it is, I finally changed a POV once. And I think right now I'm up to 3 POVs. I tend to write POVs in chunks, so I'm not hot swapping back and forth. But I'm also trying to keep the number of point of views limited so that it's not like, oh, great, now we're going to do this guy. I like to think that they're pretty cool. So to give you an idea, the main character, he's given what's called Blessing of Exia. Exia is their dragon goddess. He is given basically dragon powers, and he's only kind of just started accessing his power, but over time he's going to basically become like a dragon person. So like, scales harden, and like, as he activates his powers, he becomes more draconic and more ferocious, and he fights, and he can, I don't know, breathe fire or something. He hasn't gotten super far yet. The second main POV that I have, he is basically a mana knight. He uses magical armor that he constructs from mana, and so every level that he uses increases the skill that he's using changes the color and the shape of the armor, and he uses different swords that are made of mana, and he's a more experienced battle mage who his job is actually to go into the dungeon and rescue people. And so we get to see a mixture of both, okay, what is it like to like start from the absolute beginning, and what is it like when you're already sort of experienced. So that character is, for your viewers who will get it, he's more like the Kakashi of the story as opposed to the main character. So yeah.
Is this set on Earth of some sort of alternate reality or secondary world?
So this is a secondary world that's heavily inspired by ours. In the Ace Combat video game series, they coined the phrase "strange real" to describe their world. It's a world that's strange and real. It's similar to ours, but it's not ours. And the reason they do it in Ace Combat is because in Ace Combat, it's about modern fighter jets doing aerial combat, which almost never happens in real life. And so they created this secondary world that's very similar to ours, so they could have an excuse to create, these massive aerial battles. With my world, I wanted this feel. It takes place in 1990s era, like Hiroshima is where it takes place. It's similar to Hiroshima, but it's not quite Hiroshima. It's called Meroshima, which Shima in Japanese means island. Hiroshima basically means triangle island, but Meroshima means labyrinth island. So it's this city that's very similar to Hiroshima. It's built on top of a giant labyrinth that goes into the ground. Something else I wanted to explore with it is I wanted to explore bilingualism, which because growing up, I grew up learning Japanese as a teenager. I can speak Thai conversationally. I would say I speak it fluently, but that would be a lie. But I speak very well. I can still read. I can still write in Thai. And so I wanted to capture kind of that bilingual experience in a way that felt authentic, but also was really approachable and not really annoying to read, because writing bilingual characters is usually actually really obnoxious because idioms don't translate very well. There's a lot of it's also really annoying to have characters switch back and forth constantly between two languages, because you constantly have to say, this he said in English, this he said in Japanese. And so I created a dialogue system for this story where I can very quickly, very easily just have characters switch back and forth between Japanese and English. And it's not distracting, but it also allows me to really quickly have characters like insert idioms from other languages in a way that feels authentic. And make sure that I'm not going to lose readers who don't speak both languages.
Does this mean any narrator who might do your audiobook is going to hate you?
Probably. That's the one problem that I haven't quite figured out. One thought I had would be maybe hiring a Japanese American narrator who can do a real Japanese accent. I'm like, I could try doing a Japanese accent, but it doesn't matter if it's accurate. I will get in a lot of trouble for it. So that's one possibility, and I don't know. That's something I'm still figuring out. This is definitely as much a passion project as it is something that I think I am simultaneously making this a passion project and writing to market. It is written for progression fantasy fans, but it's also something that I don't necessarily want to just give a bunch of the same old tropes. I want to give something that feels unique and fun and exciting and somewhat original. I know there's nothing original under the sun, but I wanted to do something that felt authentic to the experiences I had growing up in Japan.
Now, do you have to be familiar with anime and anime culture to get a lot of these references? Would it fly over your head? Or could the average person who has no experience with that just come in cold and understand the story?
So my goal is to write good stories. If you know anime, you will probably get more references, but you should not need to have watched anime to enjoy this. But my target audience is definitely people who enjoy anime, who enjoy lit RPG.
Okay. But a casual anime fan or someone who hasn't seen a lot of them could still watch this and enjoy it.
Oh, yeah.
Or watch this. I mean, read this.
Yeah. I know, right? But yeah, no, you do not need to be a hardcore anime nerd to read it and enjoy it.
For those that use adaptive technology, I know some websites, like if I got a PDF or a Word document, I can get it to read it to me. Does Royal Road have anything built in like that for people that have like dyslexia or other reading deficiencies?
It doesn't have anything built in, but you can use Speechify.
Okay, so there are options for people. Well, some of our listeners have issues with that. That's why when it's on a site that I'm not familiar with, I tend to ask.
Yeah, Speechify works just fine. And even if you aren't looking at the site, you should still be able to understand and enjoy it.
All right, cool. I wonder what Speechify is going to do with the accents and and the pronunciations.
Oh, it won't notice that. It'll just read it as normal. But it should still be... The best way I can put it is the extra like linguistic stuff is a really nice icing, but it's not the cake, right? So even if you are reading it and you don't use the like linguistic stuff, right, you should still enjoy it.
So what have your initial target readers thought of the story so far? Because you get real-time feedback on Royal Road.
Yeah, I haven't gotten too much feedback, but I have gotten a bit, and they seem to really like it.
Cool.
That's what I hear. It's really funny. I uploaded a chapter recently. I'm like, hey guys, I'm sorry. This fight scene isn't my best fight scene. In fact, I'm not very happy with it. But with the move, it's like I haven't had time to really go in and like tune it up and make it up to the level of quality I want. And one of my readers commented, he said, now this is a really damn good fight scene. I'm like, okay. I guess that I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm glad that the person enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And sometimes we're our own worst critic. So for people that aren't familiar with Royal Road, is this one, obviously the link I grabbed for it, because I'm going to include the link in the show notes, is for the website. Is there an app version for people that read on their tablets or phones?
I think there is.
Okay. If you don't know, that's cool too. I just didn't think to look, but we're just, off the cuff chatting. So
yeah, I think there is. But again, I typically just use the web browser.
Okay. So the fight scenes, when you write the fight scenes, would you describe it, since you're a fan of the Japanese and the martial arts movies and all that, would you consider your fight scenes written in the wire fu style, or do you try to be more grounded in reality?
Yes.
All of the above?
So the way I try to approach it is I try to do without magic. I tend to do slightly more grounded fights, not completely grounded. I had a beta reader saying why is he doing a roundhouse here? That's not realistic. Like, I'm like, because it looks cool. But I still try to do a certain degree of groundedness. I've done a lot of research and reading on, MMA, on karate, on boxing, on, HEMA, sword fighting, kendo. Like, I've tried to research a lot of those. I've done a little bit of taekwondo myself, but not. I would still get my ass kicked in a fight. So I researched all of that, and so I try to ground the fights in that realism to an extent. So you don't see it too much in this, but in my other story, you saw Benrigesh, the Cocoon Chronicles. You had characters tying up in clinches and doing knees. You had ground and pound, but then you also have silliness where like it's like they're technically in like a boxing ring doing MMA, but the character does like a springboard off the rope and does an elbow drop, not because it's realistic, but because it's fun and it's a little silly. And so for this story, I tried to use real karate stances, but I also try to balance it with modern, MMA style karate where they don't emphasize stances as much. There's more of an emphasis on, almost boxing style karate. And so I try to pull a mixture of both and a measure of both, but then I also add magic on top of it. And the magic changes the dynamic a lot. So it's like, okay, well, I just did a Superman punch, which is a thing in MMA. But instead of it, just knocking the guy over, it sends him flying 20 meters because these characters have superpowers. Or there is a, I can't remember the words off the top of my head. I had to do a ton of research for this, but there is, real karate moves where, they have the hand extended, they have the right arm chambered, and then they step forward and punch at the same time and extend their hand. And I have the character do that, but because they have superpowers, he catches the guy in the gut, and it's like an impact shot, boom, and dude goes flying. And so, like, I get to take these realistic combat concepts and add magic to them. Another example from a recent chapter, I described a character, he has magic armor. His name is Shinji. Shinji, and I'm saying it like a gaijin, yes, sue me. Shinji, his magic is that he can summon magic armor, right? But he's EMS/SWAT. So he doesn't just rely on that. He also carries a carbine, a silenced carbine. He also carries a handgun. He has flashbang grenades. He also has a medical kit, and he also has a specialized shotgun that he uses because he's like, well, I have magic powers. I'm really strong when I wear this armor, so I can do things that people normally can't. So normally, you don't usually use a 10 gauge in a combat scenario because it just has too much kick. It's really heavy. It's big and unwieldy. But he carries a specially made, hear me out, a sawed-off 10 gauge. And you're like, JC, why on earth would you do a sawed-off 10 gauge? He can fit maybe 3 shells in there at most. Well, when he runs out of shells, he has a special skill called Boomstick where he can replace shells with magic. They don't do as much damage as a shell, but he can still keep fighting that way.
Okay, so you're blending the real and the arcane.
Yep. I am a huge fan of guns and magic together as like doing combat. It is just so fun to me. Shinji uses a specialized style where he has a magic sword in one hand. It's a long sword, but he's wielding it like a one-handed weapon because anime logic. And in the other hand, he has the sawed-off 10 gauge. And I specifically was pulling from, in how I constructed his posture, I was specifically pulling from Cervantes from Soul Calibur. I'm like, oh, this would be a really cool reference to this video game series that I really love. And then I got to have a lot of fun writing that fight scene.
So when I write, I like to picture it as a movie in my head. That's how I dictate it and then edit it out. So I'm watching it like a reel-to-reel on my head. I'm guessing, based on your descriptions, you're watching it as an anime in your head.
Yeah, I I do visualize it a lot. My internal eye is kind of selective, so sometimes it's very detailed, but I usually don't see faces when I'm visualizing things. I can visualize blocking, and again, because it's not super detailed, I wouldn't even say I see it as real or as anime. I just kind of see it as right, as like rough outlines. I visualize surroundings very well, so I can see like the settings, and that's actually been to my benefit because I like elevating tropes. So if I want to have a dungeon, I'm not just going to have like, and they're going around a random labyrinth that's constantly changing. The dungeons that they use are insanely over the top, strange locales that take up Euclidean space, which means they don't change all the time. They are actually mapped. And so I'm like, okay, well, what does it actually look like? And so I was able to create like this really fascinating area I call the necropolis, where it's like this we haven't gotten far enough that I can reveal the entirety of it, but there's this interconnected series of large walkways that go across this giant ocean of like black looking water. They don't really know what's in the water because it's pretty far down, and all of the color inside of this dungeon area is muted, so it's all black and white except for the color of blood. Blood is always red in this area, and you have these interconnected platforms with these big, walkways between them. And then if you go far enough into here, you actually find walls around an actual city. But the city is strange. It feels like it looks like a city, but there's not really people living inside of the city. And there's these, and it has the semblance of city without actually being one. And you go, and as they go through this area, they encounter these mannequins, just hundreds of mannequins surrounding this giant pyramid, and they're all bowing to the pyramid before they arrive at this destination. And I won't say necessarily what they're doing or what they're looking for at the time, but I get to play with this really surrealist concept, and I can take each area of the dungeon and do different things with it. And so it's a lot of fun for me. And the fact that I can visualize it makes it a lot easier for me to understand, okay, here's how they connect, here's what it actually looks like, okay, what am I missing, what is not in here, and so on and so forth.
Now, when you have them bowing to the mannequins, is that inspired by what's really happening in Japan and some of the cities with no kids where they have dolls around the town, so it's supposed to be less, I don't know, creepy?
No, I wasn't thinking of that per se. The mannequins are bowing to the pyramid. The characters are moving through the city, but ultimately, I had an idea for what this place could be, and you get a very strong idea of what it is in the most recent chapter actually that I uploaded, and like what is this place? Why does it look this way? And it's just one part of the dungeon. There are something I really enjoy playing with in stories is sense of scale. Human beings are really good at understanding horizontal distance, but we're really bad at understanding vertical distance. We don't really comprehend it. And so these dungeons go down and down and down, and nobody on the surface world really knows what's at the bottom of a dungeon, because the deeper you go, the stronger the monsters and potentially demons get.
So, have you seen Delicious in Dungeon? Has it got any resemblance to that for those that, because that's kind of, I don't know, beginner normie anime that people might be aware of it?
Delicious in Dungeon is a type of commentary on the same tropes that ultimately made their way into Deadmen Dungeoneers.
Okay. So when you say the dungeons that you have like an actual, they take up real space, so it's not fluid. which on the one hand, you don't tend to do that. When you have the dungeons constantly moving, it's so that way you don't have to track in your head. It's a cheat for the author, right? So I don't have to know what the floor plan is. Because you don't do that, does that mean you have sketched out versions of the maps?
Not necessarily, because I've done some calculations to make sure I'm getting my distances right, but because I'm not showing people actual, maps of routes, these dungeons are so incredibly big that I don't necessarily need a really good map. But part of why I did that, though, with having them be Euclidean, is if they're going in and rescuing people, how do they find the people? And so I'm like, well, I could have it be that, they just have to keep looking until they find someone. But, yeah. So I had it be Euclidean, and then I had to think of when I'm crafting magic, when I'm crafting magic technology, Magitech, because this world is built upon Magitech. I ask myself, if I give them this ability, what else does that allow them to do? And so when I am crafting systems, I am asking I can't just say, oh, well, they just know where the person is because X, Y, and Z. I'm like, because, well, how would that break other things? That would break so many other things if I gave them that power. So I don't. And so I built an entire system where around basically just how they track people and how they track their routes and how they find them after the people get trapped or after, heaven forbid, they die or get injured. And so for me, by imposing those limits, it allows me to do really creative world building stuff that gives a lot of flavor. And so part of that is, they have something I didn't consider when I first was devising this, but I came up with it as I was figuring out how they actually track people, is they have these little beacons throughout the world that use radio waves, not throughout the world, throughout the dungeon that use radio waves, because radio waves do not go through stone, we have discovered. So you have to have basically like a daisy chain of tracking beacons to a certain extent. And I was like, oh, cool, I'll have those in. And so when the characters pass one of these tracking beacons, it basically it's about the size of a fire hydrant. It looks like a post box almost. As they're passing by on their motorbikes or their buggies, they just tap the beacon and say, good bot, and keep going. It's a little tiny detail that I'm able to add into it that, if I hadn't been, thinking through, okay, how do they do this? How do they actually track this stuff throughout the world? I wouldn't have thought of that little detail.
What is your favorite? I know we're running up on time, and I don't want to give any spoilers, but what is the favorite detail to the world you've added? You've talked about a lot. I think we've got a good feel of the universe, but what is your favorite little nugget you've thrown in there?
I think my favorite thing that's in it is how it feels very grounded in an anime style Japan setting. I try very hard to make it feel authentic, to make it feel like somewhere you would have actually been in the 90s in Hiroshima. Admittedly, I wasn't there in the 90s. I was there in the mid-2000s, so I'm having to guess a few things, and sometimes I have to text my dad and be like, hey, Dad, like, what was Hiroshima like in the 90s? Because he was there in 92. But so that's the grounding, but then both through the dungeons and when you arrive on the first page, there's a map, and it says lands within the dragon shield, and it's this big circle that all of humanity resides in, and it contains multiple continents. And the thing is no magic, as extreme wild magic doesn't exist inside of this dragon shield, so it's a very mundane area compared to, say, what we think of when we think of fantasy. But when characters go outside the dragon shield or they go into the dungeons, it transitions from this very familiar setting to one where I can do a lot more crazy things, where I can do a lot more fantasy, where I can do a lot of nuts things. So I'm finding internally consistent world building methods to basically have my cake and eat it too, where I can have like this grounded setting, but I can also have magic, and I can also have yokai, and I can have kitsune, and I can have Western style magic, and I can have script based magic, and I can have Japanese onmyodo or onmyo, religion, magic, Shinto, kami, yokai, all of that kind of crammed into a single setting, and that's part of why I made it a series, because I was able to cram so much of it into it, and I knew that unless I took my time, I wouldn't get to explore all of it. So by doing it as a serial, I get to take my time and just go sink my teeth in as deep as I want into this world. And it was such a fun world to explore for me.
Okay. Would you live there if you could?
Yes.
Okay.
But since that's not possible, I'll just take living in Japan instead.
Fair. Okay. So as we wrap this up, this is the part, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books. I happen to know on Royal Road you can leave reviews chapter by chapter, sometimes paragraph by paragraph. So you really can share with the world how much you think. You can also share through Royal Road to sites like Facebook, X, Twitter, if you prefer. You can copy the link and share it on other websites. So you can spread the word to get the story out there. That really does help visibility-wise with the algorithms. And so with that, JC, and obviously all the links will be in the show notes, but how can people who wanted to follow this story and follow you, how can they find you?
Yeah, so obviously the story, you can leave comments. Ratings and reviews are deeply appreciated. I really do need them a ton, but I'm also available on Twitter, X, Twix, whatever you want to call it. I have a Discord server, and I have a page on Facebook, and so those are all places where you can reach out to me. I'm always happy to chat, always happy to answer questions, always happy to talk about anime, video games, all of that fun stuff, because I write this stuff because I love it. I love it because I read it, I watch it, I enjoy it.
All right. And with that, dear listeners, dear viewers, you can find us on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChute, the Rumble, the YouTube, the TikTok, the Twitters. We've got our Spotify, our Discord, our Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. We have our email, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com for professional purposes only. People save the shenanigans from Stabby Stab over there on the Instagram, the Twitter, and the email. You can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/AuthorJRHandley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/AuthorJRHandley. Be sure to leave in the comment section that is for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will keep that. Wow. Leave a comment in the comment section. Oh, it's been late. And I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink that coffee brand coffee till it pours out of their eyeballs and they cry tears of happy caffeinated Java joy. If you want some of that coffee brand coffee for yourself, the link is in the show notes. The discount code podcast grunts. You get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win, people. And with that, I would like to thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And with that, I definitely need to go get some of my own coffee, because clearly I am dragging. Thank you for coming on, JC. This was fun, as usual.
Thank you so much. Look forward to the next time we get to do something like this.
All right. And with that, we'll hit the end button. Wait for it.